At 0244 local time on 7 March 26, a Patriot battery operator stationed on the island of Bahrain picks up the first contact on his scope, low, slow, bearing northeast, crawling up the Gulf at 110 knots. He watches the signature for 8 seconds, and then a second contact materializes behind the first, then a third, then 6 more appear in rapid succession, stacking up on his display like a queue that has no intention of being polite. Shahed swept-wing kamikaze drones, each one powered by a 2-stroke engine on the tail and packed with enough high explosive to gut a building from the inside out. At least a dozen of them, and every single bearing is aimed squarely at Naval Support Activity Bahrain, a base where 8,000 American service members, their families, are sleeping in their racks less than half a mile from the perimeter fence. The battery commander's problem at this moment is not tactical. These drones fly in a straight line at the speed of a Cessna. There is no evasion, no maneuvering, no sophisticated guidance logic. His problem is purely arithmetic, and the numbers are ugly. A PAC-3's interceptor costs $4 million a round. Shooting one at a $30,000 shed is the operational equivalent of swatting a mosquito with a Rolex watch. It works every single time, but you are not getting the Rolex back. And every round he burns tonight is one less he will have if something bigger, faster, and more dangerous shows up behind the swarm. But protecting civilian life is non-negotiable. There is no version of this conversation where he lets a drone through. He fires. The canister blows, and the PAC-3 clears the launcher on a pillar of white exhaust, 17 feet of guided telephone pole accelerating to Mach 5 inside of 2 seconds. No conventional warhead, no fragmentation sleeve. Just a 700-pound guided brick that steers itself into the target nose-on and lets kinetic energy do the rest. The Shahed does not maneuver. It does not detect the threat. The PAC-3 shreds it over the harbor and debrains into the water below. He fires again. Same result. The drones keep coming because Iran did not send a dozen. Iran sent enough to try to drain the rack entirely, wave after wave time, to prevent any recovery. What the battery commander could not know in that moment was that the Shaheds were never meant to hit at anything. They were bait. The Patriot crew shreds them faster than Iran can space the follow-on waves, cycling through engagements with practiced efficiency. But while both batteries are angled northeast and chewing through the last of the swarm, a Fatah-1 ballistic missile drops from almost directly overhead on a near-vertical descent at Mach 13. Iran's most advanced weapon, slipping through the front door while security is busy chasing skateboarders in the parking lot. The warhead hits a service center 130 feet from the command hub. A second missile flattens a satellite uplink dish. 2 hits. Out of everything Iran threw at Bahrain that night, 2 weapons landed, and the operational impact is close to absolute zero. The satellite uplink dish was one of at least half a dozen redundant ways that Fifth Fleet maintains communications with its ships: HF radio, UHF SATCOM, Link 16, fleet broadband, encrypted chat over multiple channels. Losing that dish is operationally equivalent to having someone cut your landline while you have a cell phone, a satellite phone, and your neighbor's Wi-Fi password as backup. The comms reroute within minutes. Fifth Fleet does not miss a single beat. The American war machine barely registers the hit. 50 miles across the water in the United Arab Emirates, the scope at Al Udeid is filling up with inbound contacts in a way Bahrain look like a warm-up act. The Combined Air Operations Center sits in a hardened building at the airbase, a structure designed to absorb punishment and keep functioning no matter what lands on its doorstep. Nobody leaves their console. The air war against Iran does not pause because Iran decided to shoot back. At 030 local, Iranian ballistic missiles cross the Qatari coastline in stacked salvos, a second salvo already climbing out of Iranian territory before the first has even arrived, a third right behind that. The design logic is clear. Keep the Patriot batteries cycling reloads without a gap, overwhelm the intercept timeline, and hope that mathematics eventually works in Iran's favor. A PAC-3 MSE operator picks up the lead track at 40 miles. Speed, trajectory, probable impact point, all of it computed in under 2 seconds by systems that have been refined through decades of development and real-world testing. He confirms the engagement. The canister blows and the PAC-3 MSE clears the launcher. The MSE variant is faster and significantly more capable than the baseline system, steering at Mach 5 with altitude thrusters borrowed from the same engineering lineage NASA uses to dock spacecraft, firing millimeter corrections at a closing speed where both objects cease to exist on contact. The first intercept flashes above Doha at 80,000 feet, the warhead and the interceptor converting each other into an expanding cloud of fragments at over 8,000 miles per hour of combined closure. A second PAC-3 is already climbing before the debris from the first engagement has started its long fall. For 90 seconds, every Iranian missile meets an American interceptor on the way up, the operators cycling through engagements with the mechanical precision of a crew that has run this exact drill 10,000 times in simulators. Not hesitation, not drama, just execution. Iran's one genuine success at Al Udeid comes comes from the same playbook they used at Bahrain, a maneuvering warhead that fires small lateral thrusters at 30,000 feet and shifts its trajectory just enough to slide past interceptors that have already committed to the original track. 2 warheads and a low-flying Shahed managed to penetrate the saturated defensive window. An ANFPS-132 early warning radar takes damage, a section of the flight line gets cratered, and it barely matters in the operational calculus. The E-3 Sentry AWACS, orbiting at 30,000 feet, is already performing the same detection and tracking function that the damaged ground radar was handling. The base runs on backup power, backup communications, and backup sensors designed specifically for situations like this one. The cratered flight line gets rapid set concrete within the hour, crews working under floodlights with the methodical efficiency of people who trained for exactly this contingency. Inside the Combined Air Operations Center, the screens flicker briefly from the impact of the nearby strike. The overhead lights sway. An officer grabs his coffee before it slides off the console. Fire trucks work the flight line outside the blast-rated windows, while the officers inside continue directing the air campaign against Iran without a single moment of interruption. Iran put 3 weapons through the front door of the building, running the air war against it. The air war did not notice. That is not a metaphor or a boast. That is a factual description of what American redundancy, engineering, and training looked like under live fire on the night of 7 March 2026. In the skies over Kuwait, however, the scale of what Iran attempted reaches its most audacious expression. The sky over Ali al-Salim sounds like a thunderstorm that has taken up permanent residence directly overhead and has no intention of moving on. 380 inbound projectiles, ballistic missiles, and drones stacked together in coordinated salvos designed by Iranian planners who spent years studying American missile defense doctrine and looking for the seams. Salvo after salvo crosses the border in a barrage that represents the single largest combined missile and drone attack any integrated air defense system has been asked to handle in the entire history of modern warfare. The Kuwaiti and American Patriot crews are about to do something that nobody in the defense community believed was physically achievable at this scale. A PAC-3 operator acquires the first inbound Shahab variant at the edge of his engagement envelope 35 miles out, descending through 60,000 feet at Mach 6. He fires 2 interceptors 8 seconds apart. Standard doctrine: if the first misses, the second's already on its way, and the threat does not reach the base. The first interceptor catches the warhead at 40,000 feet. Flash, track gone. The second, already committed and unable to stand down, self-destructs when it loses the target. 2 rounds per threat. That is the math that nobody puts in the sales brochure, because you do not get second chances with ballistic missiles, and there is no acceptable failure rate when 8,000 Americans are sleeping under the trajectory. The batteries keep firing. White arcs climb in pairs against the night sky. Flash at altitude after intercept Iranian missiles from the equation. Wreckage trails streak earthward in long graceful arcs that mark the graves of $300,000 weapons that never got close to their targets. The crew cycles through reload after reload. Canisters emptied, swapped out, and reloaded by ground teams working under the strobing light of their own interceptors launching overhead. Men and women in body armor moving with the purposeful speed of people who understand exactly what happens to the base if they slow down. Every few minutes a new salvo crosses the Kuwaiti border, and every few minutes the Patriot batteries answer it. The pace never slackens, the accuracy never drops. 3 hours of continuous engagement at a rate of fire that no peacetime exercise ever came close to simulating, because you cannot simulate 3 hours of real combat at this intensity in a training environment without burning through assets that cannot be replaced. 380 engagement, 0 leakers, a perfect record maintained under conditions no missile defense system on the planet was ever explicitly designed to face at this volume. They bat 1,000, not roughly, not approximately, 1,000. The kind of performance that rewrites every textbook on integrated air and missile defense published in the last 20 years and renders the previous assumptions about saturation thresholds functionally obsolete. Physics still extracts its cost, because physics does not care about performance records. 380 intercepts means 380 debris clouds falling somewhere in Kuwait. The laws governing falling objects do not make exceptions for Allied territory, and most of the wreckage lands in open desert, which is exactly what the desert is for. But shrapnel from a high altitude intercept rains through a supply staging area where troops are loading pallets through the night, and the calls for medics ring out across the base. Ground crews patch the runway with rapid set concrete and route forklifts around debris craters with the calm efficiency of people who have been briefed on exactly this contingency. A stray drone clips Kuwait International Airport. Iran's barrage has done little more than inconvenience commercial aviation schedules. The shrapnel casualties are the cost of physics, not the cost of failure, and the distinction matters enormously when you are trying to understand what happened in the in the Gulf on this night. Far to the south at Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE, a THAAD operator receives the launch notification at 0347 local time. 2 ballistic tracks, high arc inbound from Iranian territory, climbing out of the launch plumes that American satellites have been watching since the moment the missiles left their mobile launchers. Terminal high-altitude area defense, 30 years of development, and billions in taxpayer investment, a system that proved its worth against Houthi ballistic missiles over the UAE in 2022, and spent 2024 and 2025 firing roughly 150 interceptors defending Israeli territory from Iranian ballistic attacks. But it has never before defended an American base under a direct Iranian ballistic barrage until this specific moment on the morning of 7 March 2026. The battery fires. The first interceptor blows out of its canister and climbs on a single-stage solid rocket motor, one continuous burn pushing the weapon straight up through the troposphere, through the stratosphere, into the thin black edge where the sky stops being blue and becomes the airless void of space. At 60 miles altitude, higher than weather balloons, higher than any spy plane ever flew, higher than the operational ceiling of every aircraft ever put into service, the nose cone separates and the kinetic kill vehicle, roughly the size of a basketball and packed with infrared seekers and its own divergent attitude control thrusters, flies free into vacuum so that a candle flame would not survive there for a single second. And this object, this basketball-sized instrument of American engineering, steering itself into a target moving at Mach 8 using sensor data processed faster than any human reflex. No conventional warhead, no explosive charge, just mass meeting mass at a combined closure speed that crossed the entire continental United States in under 12 minutes. The seeker locks the descending Iranian warhead against the cold background of space. The thrusters fire millimeter corrections measured in fractions of a second, and the two objects meet head-on 60 miles above the desert floor. Kinetic energy converts both into vapor and expanding gas. 2 flashes above Abu Dhabi, bright enough to photograph from the ground with a consumer camera. A second interceptor handles the second track with the same clean quiet, close, convert to vapor. Iran fires over 300 missiles and drones at the UAE that night. Every single one aimed at a military target gets intercepted. Al Dhafra stays in the fight without a scratch, not a pothole on the runway, not a broken window in the operations building. Undeterred by the results, which they apparently have not fully processed, Iran tries the same approach in Jordan. An F-35A pilot at Muwafaq Salti Air Base is running through his final pre-takeoff checks when the air raid sirens begin their long wail across the tarmac. 49 projectiles are converging on the base, ballistic missiles and drones in mixed salvos designed to stress the layered defenses and create engagement timeline conflicts. Jordanian interceptors climb hard into the night. A THAAD battery takes the highest and fastest threats with the same exo-atmospheric intercepts that just vacuumed the sky clean over Abu Dhabi. But one warhead punches through the defensive net during a saturated window, and the blast shakes the flight ramp hard enough that the pilot feels it through the F-35's landing gear while he is still on the ground. Smoke is visible off his left canopy from a structure that just took a direct hit. His targeting card says Iran. He advances to military power, feels 40,000 pounds of thrust press him into the ejection seat, releases the brakes. The F-35 accelerates down the runway with sirens wailing, with smoke rising off to the left, with Patriot contrails crisscrossing the sky overhead, and with missiles still arcing in from the east. His own base is taking fire behind the aircraft, and he rotates into the dark with incoming rounds still painting the sky of him. The heads-up display is already populating waypoints. First target, an IRGC command relay in western Iran. Coordinates updated 6 minutes ago via Link 16 data link. He retracts the gear, cleans up the jet, and points the nose east at 400 knots while a Patriot launch lights up his rear view mirrors like a second sunrise. He will fly into western Iran, put precision-guided munitions through those coordinates, land on his same runway, rearm in under an hour, and do it again before sunrise. 2 combat sorties in a single night, both launched from a base under active fire from a nation-state that thought it could suppress American air power through volume of fire alone. He is not the only one with this idea. 60 other American combat aircraft operated out of Muwafaq Salti that night, F-35, Ace, FF-18s, and tankers cycling on and off the runway between incoming salvos in a rhythm that would seem impossible if it were not being documented in real time. Ground crews patch blast damage with rapid set concrete between launch cycles, moving from crater to crater with practiced efficiency, filling one while another team is still mixing the material for the next. A weapons loader drives his truck around a fresh gouge in the taxiway to deliver JDAMs to a jet turning for its second sortie. Armorers hang 2,000-pound bombs on pylons while Patriot trails arc overhead, and the air smells of cordite and jet exhaust. Iran threw 49 weapons at this base using targeting data from Chinese commercial satellites, precise enough to identify individual aircraft shelters. The intelligence was perfect. The satellite data captured everything of operational significance. Every hardened shelter, every fuel point, every command post. Even so, every one of those jets takes off anyway, drops precision-guided ordnance on Iranian coordinates, and comes back for more ammunition, while Gulf bases and Jordan get minutes of warning from contacts originating in Iranian territory. Erbil, in northern Iraq, faces a different and more visceral threat. Iraqi militia forces positioned 60 miles to the south have been launching cheap, designed drones at American compounds close enough that the operators on the perimeter can hear the engines before the radar has even finished painting the first track. By Saturday night, they have claimed 16 separate drone attacks on American positions across the region, posting the claims on Telegram with the confidence of people who have never had their claims seriously questioned. Over the American compound, a CIWS operator hears the first one before his scope shows anything significant, a cheap two-stroke engine buzzing in the dark at 300 feet above ground level. The close-in weapon system does not deliberate. Its search radar acquires the contact. The tracking radar refines the fire control solution in milliseconds. The 20mm-1A1 Gatling gun spins up to 4,500 rounds per minute, its six-barrel rotating assembly turning more than 12 times per second. The tungsten rounds leave the muzzle at 3,600 feet per second, and the drone disintegrates at a range close enough that you can see the fireball clearly without optical assistance. The entire burst lasts less than 1 second, 25 rounds of tungsten meeting a plastic airframe the way a fire hose meets a paper plate. From radar contact to scrap metal falling into the dirt, 4 seconds. A second drone appears from a completely different bearing, south instead of west, because the militia planners have read enough American doctrine to know that varying the approach heading is supposed to complicate a defensive response. The gun slews, locks, fires. The night lights up again. A third from the northwest, same result. A fourth from the east. The CIWS chews through them so fast the barrel assembly radiates heat visible on infrared sensors. The militia crews launching these drones from the beds of pickup trucks 60 miles away, absolutely no idea whether any of the weapons are penetrating the perimeter. They have no battle damage assessment capability at this range. They just keep feeding drones into the dark and posting claims on Telegram and TikTok with the enthusiasm of people who have confused activity with achievement. 6 attacks, 16 claims of American casualties, 0 impacts inside the perimeter. The Iraqi militia forces are batting 0 for the night and posting highlight reels of launches they believe resulted in hits. The most expensive thing damaged at the compound that night was a section of perimeter fence struck by falling debris from a successful intercept, wreckage from a drone the CIWS already killed. The only American military asset in the theater that Iran has not shot at by this point is the one that is not bolted to the ground, and this turns out to be by far Iran's most consequential operational miscalculation of the entire night. The IRGC launches ballistic missiles at Carrier Strike Group 3 operating in the northern Arabian Sea, apparently operating under the doctrine that if you cannot suppress the land bases, you can at least threaten the sea-based air power. The Abraham Lincoln heels into a hard turn, the same evasive maneuver that sent an F-818 sliding off the Truman's deck during a Houthi attack earlier that year, an event that became part of the institutional memory of every carrier operations team in the fleet. Flight deck crews grab hold of anything bolted down as 100,000s of warship pivots to present the smallest possible radar cross-section to the inbound tracks. The carrier's 4 shaft screws churn the Arabian Sea white as the formation moves. The escorts do not need the carrier to hold steady for them to begin their work. Their Aegis combat systems are already tracking every inbound contact before it clears Iranian airspace. 4 fixed AN-SPIV-1D phased array radar faces per ship, no moving parts, no repositioning delays, firing solutions building on ballistic threats that are still climbing out of their launch canisters in Iran. The missiles have not reached apogee, and the defense already knows with geometric precision where every one of them is going to land if unimpeded. The outer ring fires first. SM-3 interceptors climb out of the vertical launch cells in 2 destroyers, blast hatches blowing open, boosters igniting, 3,000-pound missiles clearing the deck in trails of white exhaust that light up the Arabian Sea for miles. The SM-3 is designed for exo-atmospheric intercept, catching warheads in space before they begin their terminal dive into the atmosphere, and it performs exactly as designed. The missile sheds its first stage booster, then its second, then its third, each one falling away as the weapon gets lighter and faster and more maneuverable. The kinetic kill vehicle riding at the tip, the size of a basketball, steers itself into the vacuum above the Arabian Sea using puffs of nitrogen gas so precise they are measured in millimeters per second of velocity correction. 2 bright flashes visible to the naked eye from the signal bridge. 2 tracks gone before they ever started their terminal descent. SM-2Es handle the next wave during the descent phase, interceptors screaming upward from 3 destroyers simultaneously, converging on warheads falling at hypersonic speed, and removing them from the flight path in flashes of kinetic energy. A pair of Shahed drones trying to hug the wave tops at 50 feet attempt to sneak beneath the radar coverage of the outer ring, exploiting the physical geometry of the engagement envelope in exactly the way that Iranian planners designed them to. They get inside the outer ring before the Lincoln's rolling airframe missile system acquires them. 2 Ram missiles ripple off the launcher 3 seconds apart, each one a 5-foot guided missile with an infrared seeker homing on the engine heat signature with the single-minded focus of a weapon that has one job and does it without ambiguity. The first Ram tracks the Shahed across the wavetops and hits it low enough that the wreckage scatters across the surface of the water within visual range of the ship. The second catches the trailing drone a mile behind it. 2 threats, 2 missiles, 2 intercepts at ranges measured in hundreds of yards from the hull of the carrier. The fireball from the first intercept is visible to everyone on the Lincoln's flight deck. Not a single Iranian weapon touches the carrier or any escort in the formation. The formation absorbs everything Iran throws at it and emerges without a scratch. 15 minutes after the last intercept flashes over the Arabian Sea, the flight deck is clear, the catapult steam is building to operational pressure, and the Lincoln is not launching a routine cycle. The air boss calls out every combat-loaded aircraft on the roof. This is not a defensive posture. The F-818 from VF-4040 Black Aces rolls onto catapult, one carrying 4 30B1J dams, 8,000 pounds of GPS-guided ordnance aimed at the IRGC's underground command bunker at a coordinate that has been updated 3 times in the last hour as American intelligence tracking refined the picture. The catapult officer drops to one knee and touches the deck in the traditional signal, and the whole world becomes acceleration, 0 to 165 miles per hour in under 3 seconds. The Super Hornet clears the bow and climbs east to the dark toward Iran. Behind it, Catapult 2 fires, then 1 again, then 2. 14 jets in 9 minutes, Super Hornets, Growlers carrying electronic warfare packages to suppress Iranian air defenses, and an E-2D Hawkeye riding high above the strike package to quarterback the entire operation with radar coverage and communications relay, every pylon loaded, every jet headed for Iranian territory, with the specific intent of erasing the facilities that just tried to sink an American carrier group. Iran took their best shot on the night of 7 March 2026, deploying ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, maneuvering entry vehicles, and drone swarms across 6 simultaneous attack axes against the most heavily defended military footprint the United States has ever maintained in any theater. They coordinated the attacks with precision of a military establishment that has spent 20 years studying American doctrine and investing in the specific weapons categories designed to defeat it. They used commercial satellite imagery of Chinese and precise enough to target individual aircraft shelters. They timed their salvos to saturate defense reloads. They mixed high-altitude ballistic threats with low-flying drones to force the defenders to split their attention across multiple engagement layers simultaneously. They built redundant deception into the attack with drone swarms designed to drain missile inventories before the real weapons arrived. Every tactical lesson Iran absorbed from observing American operations across 2 decades of Middle Eastern warfare was present in the design of that night's attack, and the United States Air Force, Army, Navy, and Marine Corps, operating in coordination with Jordanian, Emirati, Bahraini, and Kuwaiti partner forces, took everything Iran had and answered it with something that will be studied in professional military education programs for the next 100 years. Iran bought itself 15 minutes of empty flight deck on the Abraham Lincoln. The bill for those 15 minutes was presented in the form of JDAMs falling on every facility that planned, launched, or attempted communicate with the weapons Iran sent against American bases that night. The air defense held, the air offensive never stopped, and on the morning of 7 March 2026, every American base in the region was still flying its flag, still launching its aircraft, and still very much in the fight.